Matty Fresh on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate. Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and balling like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
And welcome back to Booze, Bets, and Ball. We have another 2-for-1 deal here with a recap and a preview with Alec and Nate here. Penn State beats Central Michigan 33-14. I don't know. Interesting game, I guess. Nate, I don't know what you thought. I was happy. It was 14-0 right away. I was like, okay, this is what I expected. Then next thing you know, it's 14-14. And then,
Yeah. So we were in New York and walking around Manhattan, Times Square, and play the Rockefeller Center and stuff when the game started. So I was watching it on my phone. And yeah, 14-0 before you could blink, and everything looked awesome. And then I don't know, the offense kind of stalled, and Central Michigan made some great catches, and then all of a sudden, it's 14-14. So we had to rush back to the hotel to finish it there instead of on the street on the phone. But I don't know. At the end of the day, they won by 19 points. I think, like you said, like I thought and may have said, you can't expect them to come out and put on a show at Auburn like they did at Auburn every single week. There's going to be good games. There's going to be mediocre games, and just don't lose the games where you're not as up as you should have been. I don't care how good or how bad the opponent is. Stuff like that's going to happen every time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rotating in this game too. Mm-hmm. It was treated in a sense kind of like a blue and white game. I feel like I think the only position they didn't really rotate early was quarterback, obviously, but everything else seemed to be kind of a mismatch early, which, I mean, that's fine, I guess. You want to rest these guys with Big Ten play starting. The running backs, I guess. I guess they were correct about what they said, that they're just going to play the hot hand because it was more Katron Allen this week. I think 11 carries, 111 yards, a touchdown, something along those lines. Singleton got his touches, but nothing major for him. I think there were a couple times where he tried to do what he did the past 2 weeks and make the 50-yard run when maybe the 8 to 10-yard run was there, and it only resulted then in maybe a 3 or 4-yard run. I noticed that happen a couple times, kind of just always looking for the home run ball. I don't know if you saw that from what
people
you saw.
Said that too. So yeah, like you said, Katron was 13 for 111 and Singleton was 12 for 42. I saw a lot of that commentary on Twitter about how he was looking to break it outside and break the home run. And, he wasn't doing that before, right? The one big touchdown against Auburn was through a really nice hole, and he just beat everybody. So I think you definitely want him to pick his spots more carefully, I guess, right? And not have that I need to take it to the house every play mindset, because that will not lead to success all the time. And, I don't know, maybe a little bit too much hype in the past couple of weeks, and, trying to do too much and keep that, Big Ten freshman of the week streak going. But it's okay. He'll come back. He's going to be I think he's still really awesome. Yeah, he's going to be fine. Towards the end of the game, he had a couple of bigger runs.
Yeah, he did once I think Central Michigan started to get tired. Katron Allen won freshman of the week, so that's 3 in a row, I think. So
yeah, it is.
They're off to a hot start. As far as the receivers go, there's never been kind of like one guy going for 10 and 120 in a game. You know what I mean? It's been like a bunch of guys like 5 for 50, but the fact that Brenton Strange had 2 more touchdowns this week, they finally, I think, have found – it took them a couple of years, but the whole Pat Freiermuth replacement thing has seemed to finally figured itself out, I feel like.
Yeah, he looks good. And, we talked, I think, a little bit last week about how well he's run blocking too, right? And that's been a big, big improvement. But, yeah, definitely Brenton Strange and Tyler Warren playing a lot of snaps together quite often, right? But 5 for 42 and 2 TDs for Brenton Strange is really good. I think ESPN doesn't track targets, but I think the targets have been spread out quite a bit, right? They have been 11 guys catch passes this week, with the most receptions being Parker Washington with 6. So you like that a little bit, right? And the defense can't key on just 1 or 2 receivers, and they are like the top 3 or 4 receivers, maybe 5, plus a couple of tight ends are all very capable, both pass catchers and runners after the catch. So they got a lot of weapons still.
Yeah, they do. And then, for these weapons, we obviously have the quarterbacks. Clifford was 22 of 34, 217, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Also had a rushing touchdown, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you did. So that's a pretty good game. But we still had the "We Want Drew" chants from parts of the student section after Clifford and the offense sputtered a little bit in the second quarter when it became 14-14. Central Michigan was not really getting home to the point where Clifford was getting sacked, but he was being hurried a couple times. And I think he started to get a little jumpy and he was moving quick and the ball was kind of sailing on him. I just...
A lot of drops this week too.
Yeah, there was about 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. So, there was a point where the entire offense, I thought, was out of sync, and it wasn't just him. The blocking looked bad. There was, like you just mentioned, the drops. The chants, they're getting weird to me. Like, they're 4-0. They're they're number 11 in the rankings. Clifford has 12 total touchdowns, 1 turnover, and he's completing 64% of his passes, which so far is a career high. I know there's a long way to go, but I don't know. It's weird to me to do that. We'll see. We'll see what happens this week, I guess. But so far, I just think the way he's playing, the way the team is playing, just doing that is a bad look at this point.
It's a horrible look. Like, I don't know. Fans can have their opinions, right? I guess they pay for stuff. I don't know. People don't pay for anything often, right? Unless they're paying for a game ticket or something like that, but they feel like they're entitled to really harsh opinions about fairly young guys that are absolutely trying to do their best, right? But I think people also need to be a little bit careful what they wish for. Drew Aller is absolutely going to be a tremendous quarterback, and we've seen him play really well, and he throws the ball better than probably any Penn State quarterback in history, and he's huge. But what people don't seem to get with Sean Clifford is that maybe he doesn't always make the best play, but he almost never makes the worst play, right? And I said that in the group chat. I was quite impressed with that turn of phrase. But I think it's true because, one time, and even the overthrow against Purdue was not a bad decision. It was a terrible throw. And 1 out of 150 odd throws this year had been bad. I think when you put the freshman in, and especially as you come up on this gauntlet that they have with Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio State, those defenses are going to put a hell of a lot more mental pressure on the quarterback. And you want somebody like Sean Clifford, who's been there time and time again, rather than throwing, even the most Trevor Lawrence would struggle, I think, in these environments going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're at the point where we need Aller right now yet. I know everybody wants to make the Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence example there and, go off of that. Maybe that eventually happens. I really don't think that's a place where Penn State is at right now, just because they are playing fine. And a lot of people have said, well, I still think Penn State would be 4-0, even if Aller started all those games. And that may be true, just considering the fact that a lot of it has been on the running backs and the defense winning the games, and that's true. But I just think Clifford honestly is playing as well as he's probably ever played, just as good as he was maybe pre-injury last year. I still think this is his team until he gives us a significant reason for it to not be. I'm talking about a 2 or 3 turnover and under 50% completion. They lose a game that a game they should, Michigan, maybe we don't expect you to win that game, but maybe you shouldn't lose that by more than 10. If they lose that by 14 to 20 points, then are we shaking our heads a little? I see those arguments, but right now I just don't see a reason for change.
I agree. So, you bring up the Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence comparison, and that's the most obvious one, certainly. Kelly Bryant in 2017 was 7 yards per pass attempt, 13 TDs and 8 interceptions. And then in 2018, in the 4 games he played, he was 67% completions, 8.5 yards per attempt, and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. So he wasn't that's not bad, right? I mean, but I don't know. Like Trevor Lawrence just, I think, was the future, and Dabo committed to that. And Kelly Bryant didn't have the experience, I think, even back then that Clifford does now. So, he started 1 year just, right? And I don't know how they did that year as a team, but it's just it's not the same situation, So.
Yeah, and this situation was obviously brought up on Saturday and Sunday, then directly after the game, because of those chants and the fact that Clifford and the offense sputtered at times on Saturday. But it also has been brought up a lot in the past couple of days, because through Twitter and Facebook and whatever board you're on, a lot of rumors surfaced about Clifford's availability this week, that he might have been hurt or something. And then people started saying Aller's starting, like definitely starting. And then there was, he could start. And then, the media goes to practice today and Clifford's out there doing everything, getting his snaps, playing with the ones. I also saw a video where he was like playing with the scout team, which seemed a little weird to me, but I guess he's okay. Franklin said he's the healthiest he's ever been this late in a year or something. So obviously the media was aware that all these rumors were going on and asked questions specifically about Clifford. So I guess they're out of the woods here on that. I'm not entirely sure at this point.
It's quite a bit of gamesmanship if they, if the media are reporting it that way and he is addressing Clifford's health purposefully in the post practice scrum, and then they go start Aller, right? That would be, I don't know, it would be brazen, right? It's probably what you might expect from Franklin, who's been a little cagey about these things. To me, like, if Clifford's healthy and you're going to sit him healthy enough and you sit him for whatever reason, that is a lose-lose situation, I think, in a lot of ways, because if Aller goes out and kills it, then you're going to bring Clifford back in 2 weeks against Michigan. And then, that, what you mentioned before, a 2 or 3 turnover game where he gets the hook turns into a, couple of incomplete passes where fans are screaming for Aller. And then if he goes out and doesn't perform well, then that ruins his confidence going forward too. Because no matter what you think about Northwestern, their defense is always tough, right? Pat Fitzgerald defenses are always pretty tough, and they will scheme to beat you, and they have that opportunity. Their offense is terrible, but their defense is not that bad. So, you're still putting them against a reasonably strong Big Ten defense there. So it's I don't know. It's a dangerous game to play that way.
Yeah, honestly, I know people would like to see Aller start the entire game and be excited about that and stay probably the entire time, even if it was like a 20-point game. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of double-edged sword to this with the whole, well, if he plays bad, then that's an issue. If he plays too good, what do we do then when maybe the more experienced Clifford is maybe the better option to go to Michigan, a place he's played before. He's played in a lot of road games. He's played at Minnesota. He's played at Iowa twice. He's played at Ohio State twice. He's kind of been there, done that, played at Auburn earlier this year. And obviously that went well, played at Purdue in their one of their biggest environments ever. And that went well. So, it's an interesting situation that if Aller does come out on Saturday and start, because maybe Clifford actually is nicked up and they're just protecting him with the bye week after. I mean, then, we're going to spend 2 weeks in between games just talking about that. And it's going to get tiresome quick, but it's all people are going to want to talk about.
Yeah, it will. And you're right. And that's all people will want to talk about. And if he if he completes 70% of his passes and throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and no picks, the minute that Clifford steps on the field against Minnesota, he is going to get booed. It's going to be something stupid like that, and especially if they lose to Michigan the week before. So I hate it. I think it's so bad. But
yeah, it's not a
just because it's a tough situation. Right?
Yeah, it's not a great situation. I know everybody wants. Yeah, it's not that we hate Aller. Like, obviously,
no, he's going to be amazing.
Both think
right?
Aller's going to be very good, and take this team maybe to a level they haven't been at in a very long time. But I just think, as for right now, like, maybe pump the brakes a little with him, and also give Clifford a little more respect than I think he's gotten so far this year.
Yeah,
but
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Maybe not as articulately, but like, if he comes out and performs well, it puts too much pressure on Clifford to not screw things up, and then the fans will give Clifford no leash. And then if Allard plays and he doesn't do well, then that puts pressure on him going forward every time he comes in as the backup too, right? Or if there is an injury to Clifford, then he's like starting out on a negative foot that way. So I don't know. It's just it's psychologically a very difficult one, I think, for both sides, both players, definitely, no matter what happens, and definitely the coaching staff too. So.
Yeah, and then the team as a whole, because then there's a leadership question, because obviously the quarterback is seen as the leader of the team, and if you kind of have two guys, maybe they lead in separate directions to an extent, and then there becomes a lot of confusion and I don't want to say mistrust, but then a separation maybe in the locker room where some guys are leaning this way, some guys are leaning that way, and it doesn't lead to a lot of good things, I guess, when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
All right, so on to Northwestern. I think regardless of which one starts at quarterback for Penn State, I think they're going to win this game. Northwestern, after looking somewhat impressive, I guess, coming back and beating Nebraska, they lost all 3 of their out-of-conference games, which is ridiculous to think about, especially considering they played Duke, Southern Illinois, and Miami of Ohio. Actually, both Miamis would be bad, I guess, at this point. But Miami of Ohio, gave up 31 to Duke, gave up 31 to Southern Illinois, only gave up 17 to Miami, Ohio last week, but they scored 23 on Duke, 24 on Southern Illinois, and only 14 this past week. They not moving the ball well at all. And they, quite frankly, just haven't, these are not good out-of-conference teams to play. It's not like they're playing an App State or, a team along those lines. These are mostly bottom feeders.
Yeah. So I track, when I post my Twitter preview of the games, I do yards per possession, taken and allowed, and then points per 10 possessions on the offense and defense. And I exclude FCS all the time. So the Southern Illinois game isn't in there. But believe it or not, Northwestern has more yards per possession offensively than Penn State does. So Northwestern's 37.9. Penn State is 37.2, which is pretty surprising. The difference comes down to scoring. So Penn State scores 31 points per 10 possessions, which give or take is close to 40 points a game. Northwestern scores 18 points per 10 possessions. So on the scoring basis, Northwestern just cannot score for shit. But then defensively, kind of the similar story. Penn State's giving up 14.3 points per 10 possessions, and Northwestern scoring or giving up 20. So maybe their offense it's still, I think, about average or slightly better than average. Again, you throw out that Southern Illinois game where they gave up 31, but their offense is really, really bad. So look for another game of Zachy Wheatley interception, maybe a Jair Brown interception, 4 sacks for Chop Robinson, and deny Dennis Sutton, and all the works on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the thing about Northwestern is they might have an argument for Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year in Evan Hull, because he's on pace for nearly 1,500 rushing yards and then 1,200 receiving yards. So, it's an interesting situation where he is literally their entire offense. So if you at least cover him, out of the backfield, and Penn State's defensive line stiffens up on him, I think Northwestern will be in a lot of trouble. But it's just interesting to see one guy lead the team in both rushing and receiving 4 games into a season.
All right, let's put that rushing number into.
Did I say 1,200? I meant 900. I was thinking, but by 3. Okay.
Okay. So, but still, okay. So he's got he has 85 carries. Okay. Nick Singleton has 42 carries. So exactly half. Yeah. Nick Singleton has more yards than Evan Hull, 376 to 370. So, he might, what's that? 85 carries over 4 games. So he's getting the ball 21 times a game. He's, he's playing a lot and he's getting a lot of touches. You worry about a guy like that who's only rushing for whatever 370 divided by 85 is, not very much. And his durability throughout the year. But yeah, like you said, he's kind of everything to their offense, and they're scoring almost nothing. So
Yeah, it's interesting situation there, really, where it's just
Ryan
him and
Polinsky,
then
though, still, I mean,
yeah,
still there, right? I mean, he's
he's not bad. He had a rough game, I think,
yeah.
their last game. Had a couple turnovers, but
It's just,
overall,
I don't know. So what? Yeah, I mean, they come out. I remember the game against Nebraska. They scored 31 and somehow beat Nebraska, and then yeah, their best game was last week when they only gave up 17 to Miami of Ohio. So, but they only scored 14. So it seems like they're always slightly worse than their competition, just barely. Like when they gave up 31 to Southern Illinois, they scored 24, and then they only give up 17 to Miami of Ohio, but only managed 14. So, oh well.
yeah, and just another point about maybe who the quarterback is won't have the biggest outcome on this game is the fact that Northwestern gives up over 160 rushing yards a game, and they obviously have not faced a running back to the caliber of Singleton or Allen so far. And maybe even I'd say an offensive line, whatever we want to say about Penn State's offensive line, Northwestern has not faced an offensive line at least as talented as Penn State's. So I think this is a game where maybe there's a chance of rain too. I think with the hurricane coming up, so I think this is a game where you just maybe rely on those backs and regardless of who the quarterback is, and just let them take care of this.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, depending. Yeah, we'll see who's playing quarterback, but if it's Aller, every run, every handoff to Nick Singleton is going to be booed because everybody wants Drew Aller to throw the ball every time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's no
some people just he's just not going to make some people happy.
No, it's like impossible to win this. So if Penn State goes over 30 points this week, which I have a feeling they will, I think they get to 30, maybe 31, 34, somewhere in there. It'll be the first time since 2008 they scored 30 plus or more in the first 5 games. Yeah, so that'll be a good stat, I guess. I mean, that the 2017 team didn't do it because they played that game 4 at Iowa where it was they only scored 21. So so that's why they're not on there.
But they should have scored like 45 points in that game. They had
a
really poor red zone performances throughout that whole game. They should have blown that team out. It was exciting. I was at that one. That was very exciting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Penn State. All right. So if they have to score more than 30, the line is 25.5.
Right.
So interestingly, the Penn State money line is minus 5,000. Like, Bo Nickel, and I tweeted this too. Like Bo Nickel last night, beat the guy who was 7-1 in 54 seconds in one of the most dramatic short fights like that I've ever seen, and was only a minus 3,000 favorite. So, if this game was a fight, it would last 7 seconds.
Kind of wish it would last 7 seconds, honestly. Like some of these games are just like painful to watch. Like even last week after it became like when it was 14-14, it's like I know Penn State's probably not losing this game, but now it's just gonna be painful to watch. I feel like it's just kind of like get me out of here. Like I don't know, there's times like that. So I think
a couple of things like you want to see him get the kicking game back together. That was talked about in the press conference today and yesterday. Yikes. I mean, inconsistency in place kicking is not good. And even kickoffs, right? I think they had a kickoff out of bounds last week, I think. And maybe not. I thought so.
I think they had one close, and I think the guy picked it up or something. I don't think one went out, though.
But for how good the kicking game was against Auburn, it was equally as bad against Central Michigan. And that's a foreboding sign because this week it'll be good, and then next week against Michigan it'll be bad again. So.
Yeah, and then Franklin talked about how Sanders Haydock is the kicker from the 35-yard line back, which is a 52-yard field goal. Attempted a 57-yard field goal, and I don't know if it made it to the end zone. So is the 35-yard line a thing? Like I don't think it is. Like because from 5 yards back, he barely made it to the end zone. So I'm not really sure what we're getting at here with the kicking. That should have been a Hail Mary, but that's another story. But
yeah, but then people were complaining about there was a punt, right? It was like 4th and 6, and they punted at the 37, I think. Or maybe that was a field goal kick. I don't know. People complain about everything, but they wanted to go for it on 4th and 6 at the. I think
it was it was about the 42 or something like that. I think somewhere in there.
I mean, they won the game by 19 points. Quit nitpicking every little thing.
Yeah, it did seem like that's where it went. And I think the fact that they just blew out a Power 5 team like Auburn like that kind of got people thinking that, they just annihilate these teams, which, I thought they put up some points at least. I think they had chances to put up more, but, it is what it is, I guess. So I do want to get to what we have this week.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So thank you. So here this came out in the For the Bloggy. So these are my efficiency metrics. So scoring efficiency is kind of what I just mentioned a little bit. It's the points per drive. Yardage efficiency is yards per drive, and then I plotted obviously the two together. So the line would be you are scoring. If you're on the line, you're scoring as many points as your yards would expect. If you're above the line, you're scoring slightly more. If you're below the line, you're scoring slightly less. So to the point about Northwestern, pretty far below the line, they are generating more yards per drive than Penn State, but scoring at a horrible rate. Michigan doing much better than you would expect them to. But if you look all the way on the far right, there's one logo that stands apart from all the others. And Minnesota right now, their offense is just absolutely incredible. That other dot between the lines is Georgia. So Minnesota thus far is taking more yards per drive than Minnesota than Georgia, and more points per drive than Georgia, and like far and away better than Ohio State. Incredible. Northwestern stinks. Iowa's terrible. Rutgers, Indiana, not very good too. Go to the next one. This one's a little bit surprising. So this is defense. So now bottom left corner is better. So again, you see Georgia really good. Below the line here means the defense is giving up fewer points than you would expect. So like Penn State is giving up 31 point some yards per drive. But they're below 1.5 points per drive. So like we talked about, the turnovers. I mean, generating 4 turnovers a game, you can give up yards if you're going to turn the ball over, if you're going to stop teams in the red zone. That's very, very good. Shockingly. I mean, I guess I didn't pay close enough attention to the Big Ten West, but Illinois has one of the best defenses at allowing the fewest yards they allow the fewest yards in the Big Ten per drive and nearly the fewest points. So Minnesota plays Illinois this week. I think that'll be a good test for the Gophers. They should still win because the Illinois offense is really bad. But we'll see what happens with the Gopher offense and how well they can perform against the top tier defense. The other two there, Iowa and Michigan. So another good test for Michigan. So I think this week is a good time to watch the noon game, which is Michigan Iowa, and see how good the Wolverines are. And then I think a night game is Minnesota, Illinois. So, you can check out Penn State's 2 next opponents against pretty good defenses to see how good Penn State's defense will stack up.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's that. And then this one, this is overall effectiveness. So this is kind of both combined things. So we're just looking at really the y-axis here. I just put the offense on the x. But this is a little bit opponent adjusted, and there's some other flavor in here. But right now, the higher the number on the chart, the better. So Ohio State, Michigan are kind of the top tier of the conference, followed closely by Minnesota. And then Penn State and Maryland is actually doing pretty well as well. So, you look at that whenever Penn State plays Maryland down the road, that'll probably be, the next toughest matchup outside of the Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota triumvirate that they have coming. Not a lot of ease left. You got Northwestern this week, and then Indiana, Rutgers, but those are kind of the last 3 cupcakes on the schedule, with 4 tough teams, and then Michigan State being, we'll see. I mean, I think they're on their way to a death spiral, but we'll see. Yeah. So here you go. Thanks.
All right. So before we get to Tequila Ty's segment really quick, I have to give a shout out to Jay Nelly, because he went 6 for 6 this past week on those. I have to find my text between him, but 6 for 6 on his picks from last week, apparently.
So he says. Yeah, did anybody check that or not?
Well, I looked, because we did the pick'em things, and he had Michigan, but Clemson covered, and they did. He had Did I say Clemson? Maryland covered.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maryland covered actually, which was surprising to me.
It was. A lot of people had like Michigan as a lock, right?
Yeah.
To
It was a
blow
close
them
game for a while. He had Clemson over Wake, but Wake covers, and I'm pretty sure they did because it went to overtime. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think they lost by 6 and the line was 7 or something like that. So, and then he had Baylor over Iowa State. They were the underdog in that game, which was so weird to me. I know it was on the road, but that was just weird. He had Tennessee over Florida, which hit. He had Texas A&M beat Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
the Arkansas kicker kicked it.
Oh, right. He hit it off the top of the goal.
field.
Right. That's right. And then he had Ohio State over Wisconsin, which wasn't even close. So, yeah, he did go 6 for 6. So when we bring him on to do bets, it's no longer a parody. It is, in fact, you should put all your money you ever have made on it. It'll happen. There's no denying it. So, yes, betting expert Justin Nelson, hit him up. He'll get you the money because apparently he's good at it now. That
would have been a 6 to 1, 7 to 1, something like that payout, right? Because it was all lines, so maybe 10.
Yeah,
damn.
Yeah, my own bad. I honestly forgot to ask him for new ones this week. He said he was studying for some Latin exam or something, so I let him go this week. So that's half my fault that we don't have anything this week. But
he needs to carpe more DMs. I mean, and stop studying and just bet all of his money.
Yeah, so we have to take him as reputable now, I guess, but that's that. All right, so now this game with Penn State and Northwestern is not only really the start of Big Ten play for Penn State, but it's also the first time ever that Beaver Stadium will be selling beer. So
that was a tremendous segue, by the way. That was really well done.
Yeah, so this is like a monumental moment. It's probably the most historic thing that ever happened at Beaver Stadium, for being honest. I can't think of anything else that would come close to this. So obviously, to go over something of this magnitude, we have to bring in Tequila Ty. So what's up?
Yes.
Hey, so we're here to discuss the alcohol sales. I guess we'll start with the menu, I guess, that Penn State has. They said it's going to vary, but they have Miller Lite, Blue Moon, Mick Ultra, and
Coors Light.
Coors Light. Yep, that's what I thought it was. So pretty much 3 beers that are more or less exactly the same, and then Blue Moon. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I like how they're doing the whole switching it up because, it's kind of whatever. If you don't like those, maybe the next game is something you like. I think it's more so just the fact that they're going to look for whatever deals they can get and whatever's overstocked, get as cheap as possible to profit as much. But, I mean, you're in a game. You're really not going to be too picky about what you could drink. I mean, this past weekend I sold a White Claw in the stadium for $9 or $10 just to go to the guy. So you're pretty desperate once you get in that stadium for booze, and whatever you get your hands on, you go for.
Yeah, I guess. But, I mean, I don't know. They're going to buy kegs, right? Is it going to be tap or is it going to be cans? Maybe it'll be big cans.
15-ounce cans from what I read.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going to, I don't know, they're going to get those worst like $3 or $4 a pop, and they're going to sell them for 10 or 12. So you can do better than 3 light beers, right?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, do you really want people drinking anything more than like a 4% beer in that stadium?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I understand why they're doing it. And right now, beggars can't be choosers. We got lucky. We got the beer in the stadium. So let's take what we got. And then maybe in a couple of years, we can bitch about what the selection is and get better stuff. But for now, I'm just happy that there's some options in the stadium. I mean, like I said before, I probably won't be the ones buying it. I'll just sneak my own in still. But for the fans that don't have that courage, it's got to be a nice option for them to have.
There's a funny video on Twitter today. This kid going to an Alabama game had a fifth of Tito's stuffed in his pants and snuck it into the stadium. It was very funny.
Oh my God. When my graduation was in Beaver Stadium, because the whole COVID nonsense, I literally stuck a whole handle of vodka in there.
Handle, sorry. Yeah.
I grabbed like the giant ass one, shoved it down my pants. Everyone gave me looks. I did not care at all.
Oh boy.
So I don't know. You go to the Texans game and there's Dos Equis and Modelo and Corona and Bud Light and Coors Light and regular Coors. There's like 20 different varieties, 20 different types of beer. I think I don't know. I think they're selling it short. I think they should be doing better. Maybe it's just a trial thing. But
I agree. I do think that has that big part of it. It's the first time they're doing it. They want to see what, how many people get involved with it, if it's working well, if there's going to be more destruction in the stadium, chaos. But I think it's all just trial and error right now, and they're going to feel it out this year and then make permanent decisions after the season's over.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Are you shocked or saddened by the fact that there's no seltzer option? Do you think that should have been on there? I mean, they're not high, they're 4% too.
Yeah, I mean, the normal seltzers are about 5, so I don't think it's a huge factor in the reason they didn't. But I do think seltzers are just more expensive than margins. So a 16-ounce seltzer when I was down in the Titans Stadium was like $17, and I don't think Penn State wants to raise prices that high yet. I think they want to start out with this 10 to 12 because honestly, for inside a stadium, I think 10 to 12 is about as reasonable as you're going to get. So I think they're going to start out with this, get the data from after this year, probably call up Nate, do some analytics for him, and then decide what they want to go from there.
I don't know. Yeah. I love, not to stereotype, but you want something that's more for the ladies. I love a good White Claw, but my wife doesn't drink beer. She don't drink beer, right? Give some White Claws or something. Come on.
I really do I keep saying it, but I really think it's just trial and error for this year. They're going to throw out as many options, and I think it's going to switch almost every week, and they're going to see which sells the best, how long the lines are every week, and I'm sure they're going to have to take into fact of what the games are and the weather and all that and who's coming out. But I think it's really going to be a lot of data that they're going to collect over this next couple of weeks inside Beaver Stadium and make a permanent decision after that.
Yeah, I am surprised that for being in Central PA, Yingling is not on the menu for week one, the first week, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of people that go to those games that love that stuff. So that was a little surprising to me that wasn't on there. But that's also because it's a smaller brewery. That could have been an issue getting that kind of stuff. I know, but I know they sell it at Phillies games, and I don't know if they sell it at Pirates games or not, but I know they sell it at the Philly sporting events. So
I drank 12 Yinglings between 7:30 and kickoff of Auburn, and it was a rough day that day.
Was it lager?
Auburn was a great day.
Oh, that'll sit, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And then 30 minutes before kickoff, I'm sitting in the stadium and my Apple Watch says, "Your heart is going very fast for not doing anything. Are you okay?" It was 1:30 or something. I'm just sitting there. But too many lagers, not enough waters.
Yeah, I think lager, it has to be under 60 degrees, I think, to drink that stuff. It is. That and the sun is not a good mix, in my opinion.
No, it's that. It's a novelty, though, right? You don't get it everywhere here. So
yeah. So I think I'm gonna maybe get a beer just for the sake of it, I guess, on Saturday. Just
kind of try it out.
See what it's Yeah. Dude, and just be a part of history, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And then
I think it's very smart on their part too that they're not selling in that whole south end zone for the students. I think they said something. There's 70 beer carts and not a single one's on the south side of the stadium. So they know what they're thinking and they know what they're doing, I think, so far.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I mean, especially just because of how prevalent fakes are in that too. That could be messy for them. I know, maybe we don't care about that, but in terms of them being able to sell alcohol in the future,
exactly.
If they get busted a bunch of times with that stuff, then it's a problem for everybody. So
I mean, that's 70 carts. What you're thinking? Probably 1 or 2 people per cart. I'd think 2, but that's 140 people you're gonna have to train to
spot IDs and
get that certificate to serve the beer and everything. So you really want all these people to have to get that, but then also learn what a real ID looks like in the whole process. Yeah. I think it's a big thing. So it's smart for them to try to migrate it to one side of the stadium where students aren't usually at and go from there.
It's going to be great, though, when Clifford throws a pick and everybody's whipping their cans on the field.
Yeah, that's I think what the concern.
That's the fear, right? Obviously,
yeah.
But
I think of when the Browns did that in that game all those years ago. That video is all over YouTube and that stuff, and so it happens. Hopefully, doesn't happen here, because then it'd just be the end of it already, and I would hate for that to be the case. But
I think if they've gone this far, they're gonna stick with it for a good amount of time.
yeah,
I don't pull the plug after one game.
Yeah, I don't think so, unless something incredibly bad happened, which I hopefully doesn't happen. If you're gonna throw something, do what Jay Nelly does: stick to chicken fingers. All right, throw them. It's a lot less damaging. So that's my
encourage
pro
you
tip.
in Beaver Stadium unless you're a quarterback.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, I guess.
Yeah.
So this will be a interesting weekend. Finally get a non-noon home game. It only took till the 5th week of the season, but finally get some actual tailgating time this weekend, which will be nice.
It is only the 3rd home game, so
doesn't matter. It just feels like forever for
The one
me.
after this is a night game. So
yeah, and then I don't know. We still don't know what Ohio State is, but
yeah,
I don't know. We will see. All right, so that's gonna do it for this episode. For Nate, Tyler, I'm Alec. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review if you watch this on a podcast platform. Sure, go ahead. Do it for Jay Nelly. 6 for 6 would have made you a ton of money if you just listened to us like we've been saying to do the entire time. So if you're gonna leave a review, do it for him. Thanks for watching.